personal growth is the same. You need the skills, but the dance is forever evolving, and there is never perfection. It's just
I love
the
that.
perfection is in the dance.
If you've been struggling with self-judgment or criticism, or you haven't been able to really dig deep into loving yourself for who you are, especially as an artist, as a creative, as a visionary thinker, all you jewelry designers out there, I just want to know you are in good company because I'm right there with you. But that's not really why I'm saying this today. It's just actually I have a really great interview with my friend Kristina Mand-Lahkiani, who is going to be talking about her brand new book, Perfectly Flawesome. And it's all about how you can accept yourself for who you are and overcome some of the things that might be holding you back in your life, and to have a little bit more compassion in your authentic self. Hey there, I'm Tracy Matthews. I'm the Chief Visionary Officer of Flourish and Thrive Academy, and I help jewelry business owners launch, grow, and scale successful 6- and 7-figure businesses using my methodology called the Desired Brand Effect. And I know that being an artist and an entrepreneur can sometimes be real hard, and we want to be hard on ourselves. And that's why I asked Kristina Mand-Lahkiani to come on the show today to talk a little bit more about what it's like to be perfectly flawesome, also known as the title of her first book. And we're going to be digging deep into issues like self-criticism, spiritual bypassing, narcissism, and so much more. And also how you can love yourself just a little bit more. So Kristina is a world-class speaker. She's a co-founder of Mindvalley and also a brand new author for the first time. And she's going to share her experience in this great episode. Let's dive right in. I'm so excited to have my friend Kristina Mand-Lahkiani on the show today. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to see you.
Oh, yeah, I was actually so happy to see you. We haven't seen each other in such a long time, and it's amazing that, you know, sometimes work makes us connect with friends.
I know, it's like we're living in different parts of the world. So just a little backstory. I met Kristina in Hawaii. And the funny story about this is that I come to this event that our friend Vina is hosting, and I show up at the event, and I'm like literally like not starstruck, that's the wrong word, but I was like so out of it because the day before, 2 days before, Jason flew to New York to surprise me, to take me on our first date. And I was like out of my mind, and I'm like sharing all this stuff with these girls, and Kristina was one of the people that I was sharing it with. She's like, I don't know who you are or who this guy is, but great. It's kind of funny, but we had such a great trip. It was just one of those amazing experiences to be all with women.
Mm-hmm. And I do remember your story. I think it's a wonderful, almost like fairy tale like story. So I'm so happy you guys are together.
Yeah, but I'd heard of you so much before that because Jason would tell me about all the Mindvalley events and Awesomeness Fest. And then I had tons of friends who would go, and I was planning on going, and then COVID hit. So, you know, all these things. So there's so many like connections all intertwined. But the reason why we're here today is to actually talk about something really exciting for you, and it's your brand new book. So tell us, Kristina, a little bit more about your journey into writing this book. Tell us a little bit about your background and all those things while we dive in.
Yeah, I think considering that we know each other a little bit longer and a little bit more on a casual level first, then it makes sense that I will actually introduce myself a little bit more officially here, since it's a show, it's work. So I'm a co-founder of Mindvalley, and Mindvalley is one of the, you just mentioned it as well, it's one of the world's biggest platforms for personal growth and transformation education. We've been around for a really long time, worked with some of the best authors in the world. One of the authors was actually part of that group in Hawaii. Yeah, I've been in personal growth for 20 years, and I'm now gradually sliding into your question. And you know how it is sometimes that if you're in a certain environment, some things you take for granted. So if you're born to a family of entrepreneurs, you know, you will start a business. It's like, that's not a question. You're not going to be a lawyer or something else. Or if your parents are both master's degrees, you don't even question that's your path. So I guess having been for 20 years in personal growth, it wasn't a question. That was the way. Of course, I will write the book eventually. But I'm also very obstinately, I don't even know how to call myself right now, but I refuse to do things just because I'm expected to do things.
Exactly.
I will do things if they make sense. And I guess by the age of 40 plus, I started feeling that there is something I want to share with the world. I have a message, and I want to talk about that. I started going on stage more, and then COVID hit, and I had a lot of time on my hands, so I sat down and wrote a book.
That's awesome. And it's called Perfectly Flawesome, right?
Becoming
Oh,
Flawesome.
Becoming Flawesome. Sorry,
But Perfectly Flawesome is also fine. It's perfectly fine name, but it's Becoming Flawesome.
Becoming Flawesome. I was really adamant about getting you on the show before I left for my trip. So I don't have the physical copy in my hand yet. So I can't have it to show people, but imagine me showing the Becoming Flawesome book right here, which is so exciting. So what is the book about? Tell us a little bit more about that.
I wish my book wasn't upstairs where my daughter is sleeping right now, because I could show it too, but I don't. It's upstairs, and it's evening here.
Okay.
So the book, it's so interesting because I realized it was about self-love somewhere halfway through marketing the book. Before that, I guess I thought I was writing about finding your path back to yourself, being authentic. But in the end of the day, I realized as we kept talking, and maybe partially because I'm so obstinate, and somebody said to me that, self-love is not really marketable, but it is about self-love. It is actually a book about your relationship with yourself. That's like the essence of it. But it's also a journey, and as a journey, it takes you, uphill and downhill through the forest into the mountain and so on.
Right. How did you, so amazing, which I think we all need support in, like loving ourselves more, being less critical of ourselves, being really more authentically who we are, all those things, being flawesome, as you say. What was your journey like? What were you talking about when you were speaking on stages for Mindvalley, or what do you do when you're speaking on, was it this topic or was it something else?
I'm a bit unorthodox as a speaker. I tend to change my speeches all the time. I have no idea where that comes from. So I started with the topic of happiness, but then it kept evolving. At some point, I started talking about, I guess, authenticity, but not really directly authenticity. And then it evolved into self-love. But I also make little side steps. Sometimes I talk about, for example, I have a speech about awareness as a superpower, which is a little bit connected to all of that, but not directly. So I talked a lot. I talk about a lot of different topics. How I came to that particular topic, I guess it's known as a midlife crisis.
You look so young, Kristina.
Well, midlife
what is
crisis
midlife these days
people
anyway?
at different ages.
I know.
Some people get it at 25. I was 40 plus ish when I hit it. So it's kind of classical definition, but some people are lucky and they hit it in, their 70s.
I feel like I hit it, let's see, maybe 3 years ago. Kind of like when COVID started, I went through this like really weird phase of like, what am I doing? Because I'm 52 now. So like going through that journey of like being like, oh wait, I'm getting old or older and all those things, and trying to figure out like, who am I? And judging myself for feeling like I haven't done enough of the things that I wanted to create in this world at that time. So what are your thoughts on like judgment and self-criticism and all of those things? Because it can be really debilitating. I mean, it was paralyzing for me for a while. I went into a huge state of burnout and wanting to burn my business down, like all the things.
So before I answer that serious question, I have to say, and it's not reciprocity. God, you don't look your age at all. Thank God. And I remember
it's the filters. I'm just kidding.
No, it's just happy life. I think it's when you're at peace with yourself, you tend to hold on to your youthful juices. Again, I'm not actually against aging. I think it's an objective
I love it.
process, and I think we are a little bit exaggerating by fear of aging. There's a conversation right now, and I know I take the blame because it was 5 years ago when I said we're hitting the age of agelessness, where you can't tell the difference between a 25 and a 55-year-old, and that's true actually. But also it's a slippery slope if we insist that no, I refuse to age. We do age. Maybe we don't look older, but we are wiser. And that's
aging
a good thing.
is amazing though, because you have so much more wisdom behind you, right? So you can come at things like a 25-year-old hasn't walked in the shoes that either of us have yet. So how could it be the same?
Yeah. But I think it's another conversation, and we shouldn't even be going there. But although I think you're definitely a good person to talk about that.
I know.
Maybe when you come on my show and we'll talk
Okay,
about that.
perfect. That sounds great.
But the question was a little bit more serious. It was about self-criticism.
Yeah.
I think the reason why people tend to be self-critical, there is, of course, like in anything in life, there are different factors that work in that direction. So one of them is how we grow up. And at some point, after we hit probably 5 or maybe a little bit earlier, later, who different people probably experienced it in different age, but at some point we hit the time when we are told that to succeed you have to work on your weaknesses and on your mistakes, I call it the red market technique. So basically it's the paradigm in which we survive. So for example, how it works is that, for example, you write an essay and you give it to a teacher, and a teacher takes a red marker and points out everything where you made mistakes. And gives it back to you and says, work on your mistakes, then you'll be a success. Now, this is a paradigm in which we as a society survive.
Yep.
There is another paradigm which is not very familiar to us. It's called the green market technique, where the same teacher takes your essay and highlights everything where you were absolutely brilliant, genius,
Wow.
did really well. And then gives it back to you and says, work on your strengths. And that's how you will succeed. It's a different paradigm. Now, we as a society, we live in the paradigm of a red market technique. And what it means is that almost everything, all the examples, all the stories, all the scenarios that we are exposed to are based on the idea that to succeed, you have to work on your weaknesses. You have to, I'm misapplying right now, but eat the frog, and do the nasty stuff. You have to sacrifice everything on the altar of success. It has to come with tears, blood, sweat, sacrifices. That's the paradigm in which we live. So part of that paradigm is necessarily the criticism, because in this paradigm, the growth goes from fear of pain, from punishment. If you write your essay and you have too much red marker, you get a lower grade, which is in essence a punishment.
Yeah.
For not succeeding. So we grow up thinking that for success, not only do we need to work on our weaknesses, but we also have to be the so-called realistics, or tough love, give yourself feedback and work on those weaknesses. And that's the paradigm in which we grow up, and naturally we subscribe to that. Now, as I said, there is a way to succeed through not punishment, but encouragement.
Yes.
But how many movies do we know about that?
Not
where
many.
the protagonist actually succeeded by doing something which they truly loved. How many examples do we see? We don't talk about that. It's not even fascinating to us. So as a result, we dismiss that as not a scenario at all. So we don't subscribe to success through doing something that you love. In fact, a few years ago, somebody let out that horrible idea that don't follow your heart. It's not going to take you to success.
Really?
So,
oh my gosh.
yeah, there was that thought circulating in Instagram or Facebook or whatever it was at that time. Now we also have to understand how our reality is created in a way. We hold a certain belief, and then, quoting one of our authors, beliefs are viruses which feed on evidence. So if you believe in something, you're going to notice the evidence of that belief. It's actually based in a reticular activating system in our brain, which filters out the stimuli, because there is so much stimuli, you can't register everything. So you notice what you focus on. And that's how our beliefs get reinforced. So if you believe that for success you need to sacrifice something, you will only notice the evidence of that. And as consequence, you will actually be a living, breathing proof of your own belief. So it's a very roundabout way coming back to criticism. But basically, that idea that you have to work on your weaknesses, you have to punish yourself for your failures. That brings us to the point where we sincerely think that for us to grow and evolve, we have to have a certain level of criticism. And we are because we're so devoted to success and to being good girl, good boy, we are actually so diligent with criticizing ourselves.
How do you balance okay, so everything that you said, like, so true. The green marker method, I'm just like, no one ever, I don't, do people really do that in school? Like, is that a real thing?
No, not in school, not in school.
I'm like, I'm like,
no, there are, I guess there are some teachers who recognize the strength of that, but it's not a system. But imagine if all your life you dedicated your time and effort, not to what you're bad at, but what you're good at.
No, I know. I mean, I recommend this all the time to people, but we still fall into this trap of self-criticism. And I mean, I do think that there is some value because we all make mistakes and we all need to learn from mistakes. There is value in that, like having that awareness and learning from your mistakes. But I think the self-judgment.
That's exactly the point. That comes from another interesting idea that we subscribe to as a society, that people by nature are stupid and lazy. So very often we buy into the necessity of criticism because we think that if you don't give someone a tough love, they won't get it. I don't think this is the case. I think we actually, deep inside, we usually know the truth. And usually you don't need to criticize yourself. If you come off stage, you usually know, for example, okay, this maybe I should try this next time, and so on and so on. Self-criticism is like, and this is an analogy I heard from some other teacher, I don't remember right now who it was, but self-criticism is like stabbing your fresh wound rather than dressing it. You actually, just by the fact of being imperfect or failing at something, if you just trust yourself that you know the truth, why do you keep, there's no need to actually punish yourself for something that for which you're already punished.
So how do you get out of that habit of like being so hard on yourself?
Oh, you have to start noticing. And of course, the fundamental skill in personal growth is awareness, because awareness allows you to notice things, the way they happen, the way they influence your life. And then it also gives you usually the desire to change something and the motivation to keep doing that. So awareness is definitely the fundamental skill, but then it requires so many additional skills. One of the skills I insist that people need to learn is emotional intelligence, because when you switch on your awareness, you start noticing the things, there will be a natural tendency to react to reality, because reality is not usually what we want. And a lot of those things will be unpleasant. So it makes sense to know how to deal with that. But then the key skills to get out of that is the same as for self-love or for authenticity. It's honesty, kindness, and courage. These are the three key skills.
Honesty, kindness, and courage. I like that. I was reading in your book overview something about how there is a dark side to personal development. What is that? What do you mean by that?
It's so interesting.
I'm like the dark side, Darth Vader, personal development.
Well, the market is immediately held on to that, and they highlight it because it's such an interesting thing and it's controversial. The thing is that my work is not about the dark side of personal growth. I usually just take occasional stab at our own industry from time to time, but I don't have like a full structure to explain what's the dark side of personal growth. But I guess one of them is the tendency to be judgmental towards yourself. But the one which comes to mind right now, because I just had an interview with with one woman with whom we were talking quite a bit about spiritual bypassing. So I guess this is the most famous one. But we also should look at a personal growth industry like at any industry. And every industry has its slippery slopes, its narrow places, its traps, its unscrupulous, people or addicted clients. We all have. I mean, personal growth is no different from, say, I don't know, entertainment or news industry. But spiritual bypassing is definitely one of the big problems. Why it's a big problem? Because it's like a shield for people against having to face their dark side.
Yeah, so explain, I know what spiritual bypassing means, but explain what that means to people who are unfamiliar with the term.
Well, I'll say it's not a scientific term, by the way.
I know.
It's a concept which kind of is an umbrella concept for a lot of things which exist in psychology.
Hmm.
So, in very simple terms, it's when people, rather than facing their own unpleasant, I
Experience
wouldn't say
trauma.
truth, but let's say situations or traumas or
Hmm.
not just the past traumas, but generally situations in life, rather than facing their own unpleasant situations and their darkness, they hide behind the concept of spirituality. For example,
Hmm.
you interact with someone, for example, gets upset with you, and then a very typical thing would be, calm down. It's about you. All I have for you is love.
Yeah. Or yeah. Or
That's
they're
rather
going
than
through something right now. That's their process kind of thing.
But the thing with that response is that you're denying another person the right to their emotions, whichever they
Yeah.
are. And rather than facing the conflict situation, which you are part of, because when there is a conflict, there are always two parts, whether you like it or not, whether you
Yeah.
initiate it or not, and hiding behind the spiritual concept that, oh no, all I have to give is love. But obviously, it's not true because the conflict is brewing, so something
Yeah.
else was given. So that's a very simple example. But now the more scientific explanation to that would be defense mechanisms,
Hmm.
which not just the spiritual people do.
Yes.
uh, it's just the spiritual people are sometimes a little annoying when they do that.
I know. I have all the love for you. You must be going through something. I'm here to support you in your process around your anger towards me.
Yes. It's and you know what you said is remarkable because very often we close the eyes to the fact that that kind of behavior is damaging to your
Yeah.
environment. It's really painful, and very often it's actually on the border of narcissism and
Oh
manipulation,
yeah.
which are pretty bad behavioral patterns. But then regular people also do that. It's just that because they don't hide behind the concepts of spirituality, they tend to be less annoying when
Yeah.
they do that. But uh, but to be more grounded in, let's say, in psychology, it's important to understand that spiritual bypassing is just a bunch of defense mechanisms which are like grouped under this umbrella of spirituality. But defense mechanism is something that all of us do. It's a natural reaction to the situations where our aspirations and our reality have a huge gap between them.
Yes.
For example, my aspiration is to be that kind of person, and then suddenly I have a glimpse of myself not being that person, and then how do you
Yeah.
fill the gap? Or there, there are so many aspirations, and now like my aspiration was to travel the world, and the COVID happened.
Yeah, I know exactly. You're like, I'm moving to Estonia or doing all these things, and then you're like, I can't go anywhere. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we had this goal of like, just this is a little bit of a sidebar, but we're like, oh, we're gonna have this bi-coast or two-city life, like New York City and Arizona, and then travel all these places, and then all of a sudden we're like trapped in a state, for a while, and it was changing, yeah, life changing, all of it.
In retrospect, considering all the it's not all the years, but it's been a long time now that
Hmm.
it's behind us. I actually think there were a lot of beautiful moments about it.
Oh yeah,
And
slow down
surprise,
was the big thing.
slowdown was amazing. The fact that, there was some kind of, it's so funny because it was the pinnacle of uncertainty, but then there was some certainty in the fact that, you were in a certain place, people were in their places. And now everything is a mess again.
I know. It's all chaos again, over and over and over.
Yeah.
So you talk about a lot of different concepts in the book. You talk about authenticity. We talked about, all these things, or you're talking about all these things. What are you most proud of in writing this book? Like what do you like to share? Like what are your favorite parts of the book that you think are really powerful?
So surprisingly, my favorite part is about spiritual bypassing. It's
It
called The
is
Weapon of Love. Yeah, it's
the
just
weapon
because,
of love.
do you remember when we were in Hawaii, we were
Yes.
told the concept of bitching up?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm doing that. Maybe there's no up or down. I'm just bitching. Well, I'm slightly exaggerating. It's mostly quite softly written, but I guess it's the cry out because I've been in the industry for 20 years.
Mhm.
I'm to blame for a lot of the things that I point out in my book. Actually, I guess everything that I say that is not right, I have done it at one point or
Oh,
another
yeah,
in my
of
life, because
course.
why would I, how would I have known? So, but that part I like for several reasons. First of all, I spoke my heart out. Somebody has to speak out sometimes, and also because it was removed in one of the edits, and I insisted on putting it back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It got removed? Oh my gosh. You're like, nope, we're putting it back in here. We're doing it. I love
Yes.
that.
I'm like, no, you can't remove my favorite part. And also, I'm probably sharing one very deeply traumatic experience in that part. I'm touching upon one of my favorite topics, narcissism. I don't touch upon that deeply. I just mention it in passing. But it's that thing that can hurt really, really badly. And that's such a curious thing, because, personal growth is all about making this world a better place, but it's also a source of so much pain.
Yeah. So, can I ask you why
Yeah.
narcissism is such a trigger for you?
Oh, I just had a prolonged relationship with a person who I believe is a narcissist. Again, I'm not taking this term very lightly. I know this is very common nowadays to call everybody narcissist or toxic, but I don't agree with that kind of light throwing of words around. So that person wasn't diagnosed. So maybe it's my guess, but there were all signs of
Yeah.
of,
It's
of that connection.
painful for the
Yeah.
person on the other side. I've
It's
had
painful for
some,
narcissists as well, actually.
yeah, I've had some experience with that, but someone very close to me was in a relationship with a malignant narcissist for 4 or 5 years and almost destroyed him. And it was like, it was rough. And like the aftermath of it, I feel like has lasted so many years. Like it's just hard because I think, and I'm not taking this lightly because this is really like, it's a really tough thing to go through. But the damage that someone can do to someone else in that situation, because they're when there's love involved and they're trying to make it work, like they just think that they can help them, but they really can't, because if someone doesn't want to
There's,
change,
you
like
know,
that's
there's always a degree of love involved. That's
yeah,
how narcissists function, because they need that connection. The most damaging thing about being in the sphere of a narcissist is that you start doubting yourself,
yeah,
which is
that's
why
it.
I think I couldn't avoid that topic in my book, because it's about finding yourself again
Hmm.
after you doubting yourself. And while it's not necessary that all of us get some kind of experience with narcissists, although some specialists say that yes, we all get exposed to that to some
I'm
degree.
sure, yeah.
But seeing those patterns, recognizing those patterns is incredibly important, because a lot of those manipulative behaviors used by people who are healthy, maybe healthy is not the right word, but not
Yeah.
narcissists, not diagnosed, for example, who are normal, regular people,
Hmm.
because manipulation is also a little bit in our blood.
Yeah.
So it's really important to see those patterns, because, for example, if coming back to the same, spiritual bypassing, when somebody says, no, it's all you're the one who is crazy. You're the one who is too
Yeah.
emotional, dramatic, or hysterical. This is a pattern which narcissists would use
Hmm.
normally on you. They're always turning tables on you. And when you notice yourself in that pattern where you're always constantly doubting, am I really crazy? Am I really too hysterical? Am I really taking too, then that's a
Yeah.
red flag. That's a huge red flag. No, probably you're not.
Hmm.
But that doubt also is the one that takes us into this deep forest where we lose ourselves, because we start forgetting who we are. We aspire so much to be
Right.
something powerful for other people.
Yep. Yeah. All of it. All of it. It's such a, like, I feel like I mean, my podcast is not about like psychology or anything like that, but it's like such an interesting topic. When I launch my next podcast, like that, these are the kinds of topics I want to go deeper into, because it's like, in a lot of ways, it's like so hard to function in a relationship with someone like that, especially if you're being gaslit all the time, or you're feeling like they make you feel like a horrible person, or all those things. It's really, really damaging. Anyway, I'm going to do
But
it like a hard, like, go ahead.
I think even if this topic is a little bit off, for you. The thing is that this is the basis of our functioning in any area of
I
our life.
know, right?
Very often we think, oh, I don't have time for my personal well-being or self-love because I have, let's say, businesses in trouble, or my teenage child doesn't
Mm,
listen to me. You think that you have problems in those areas in your life, but in reality, the causality is the reverse. You
yeah,
have problems with your well-being, which translate into your business, into your relationship with your loved ones, into your relationship with your, children.
it's true.
We all very often forget that connection, and we think, and I like to say that self-love is the soft topic, which is really hard to master.
Well, let's talk about that. So, how do you treat yourself with more compassion and more self-love? And what's the difference between loving yourself and caring yourself, and why are both important?
Well, I define self-love as a relationship, so I don't talk much about self-care, because self-care is more like maintenance of
Yeah,
that body. So not just body, of course, obviously you can
yeah,
do self-care on your
everything.
emotional
Yeah.
well-being as well. But self-love is a relationship, and relationship a little is somewhat intangible. Like it's relationship is not so much about date nights, and and I know there are 5 languages of love
Yeah.
and everything, but it's not about that. Relationship is actually about connection, being present, trust, things like that, and these are not
Mm.
tangible. So that's one of the reasons why self-love is a little hard to understand, because we don't understand. Hard to understand that. I'm just being redundant. That's
No,
why
no.
self-love is a hard skill to master, because it's hard to explain and to understand. You have to practice it in a way. I mean, it's not so hard to explain, but it's important to understand that this is a relationship. It's not a ritual. It's not that you can
Mm.
go for a walk, meditate, have a healthy smoothie, and your self-love is guaranteed. No, not at all.
Have a
I wish it
smoothie.
was
I like
this.
it. I would go have a smoothie and get some more self-love.
But that's what we love. We people love when we get easy instructions.
Right. It's not
Another
easy.
example would be, how to get in the flow, how to let go,
I
how
know.
to trust. How do you explain that? It's the opposite of trying hard.
You know what the interesting thing is? Like, I'm laughing so hard that you said this. I had such a rough morning and had some really important interviews that I was doing today. And I just wanted to like be in the flow this morning and do my self-care routine and like have my self-love. And I have my puppy here and she's sleeping behind me right now because she's sleeping now, which is great. But I'm like, we need to go for a walk right now. Like she wasn't following my instructions as I'm like trying to get her out the door and do all these things. And then I happened to like look at my phone and open up my Slack and there's something going on with the business and like it just hijacked my morning. And it's like, I need to remember that I need to love myself enough to not do that anymore, not get rattled by that. And it's just like that relationship of being like compassionate in a way, like it's okay. Like your morning got derailed and like you'll have another morning and it's okay. And
Yeah.
you're still having great interviews today. It didn't ruin them.
Yeah, it's again, we're coming back to that self-criticism story,
I know.
when when in addition to the damage of having derailed your morning, you would damage yourself further by not being able to keep it all together.
I know. Oh my gosh. What would happen then? Have you ever
You know,
lost it in public?
usually I would eject myself from that situation, because
Mm,
I'm a kind of private person. Yeah, I've been angry, but usually not in the kind of public that I would care about.
yeah.
I
You're
mean,
like, whatever.
on the street sometimes I could.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say is that uh, doctors say that stress is not as bad for you as stressing about the stress, and
Oh,
this is something which
that's
is really good.
interesting.
Yeah, it's something. It's a thought that really helped me. Um, you know, it's not just stress; it's any kind of emotions, destructive experiences. Let's say anxiety is not as bad for you as the anxiety about anxiety. A very simple example would be you wake up in the middle of the night and you have insomnia, and you're like, oh
Mm.
damn it, tomorrow I have an important date. So in addition to insomnia, you start, winding yourself up. What's going
Yeah,
on?
that's
Tell
the
me about
worst.
it. So apparently the best thing to do is just chill and relax and think, okay, at least my body is resting. So the same with our imperfect experiences in life, they can be imperfect. What makes them really horrible is when we actually escalate that.
That's an interesting way to think about it. As a former insomniac myself, I've been sleeping so much better lately, which is great. But it's the judgment of the fact that you're not doing the thing that you want to do that makes it the worst.
Yeah, rather than saying that, okay, this is what I have, what's the best I can do with that? Sorry for a somewhat out of place quote, but Gandalf told Frodo.
I love it.
And I hope people know who Gandalf and Frodo are. And Frodo said, why do I have to live in these times? Or why does it have to be my fate? He said, you don't get to choose the times when you live, but you always get to choose what to do with the times that you're given.
Oh, that's a great quote. I'm not a Lord of the Rings follower, but I know who Gandalf and Frodo are.
Good enough.
That's so great. So we've talked about a lot of different things: judgment, self-criticism, self-love, narcissism, and so many other topics here. How do we bring this back to use as fuel for like non-toxic personal growth, as I'll call it?
Thank you for that idea. I really like that you added toxic personal growth. I don't think I've ever phrased, but
I'm joking. The dark side of personal growth is what I meant.
No. Toxic personal growth is really interesting concept. I have to let it digest a little bit. Well, how do we bring it back? I think it's Alan Watts who said it the best. Life is not a destination; it's a dance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really about being perfect. A lot of people, when they come to personal growth, they think, okay, now I'll do all my classes, I'll get my diploma, I'll graduate with master's degree in personal growth. And then it doesn't work like that. It works more like shower. You go in the shower in the morning and then you run around and then you fall down in the mud somewhere and then you come home and you need a shower again. So personal growth is the same. You need the skills, but the dance is forever evolving and there is never perfection. It's just the perfection is in the dance.
It is. So we need to become better dancers with life.
Yeah.
Or actually, both of them, all of it.
Yeah, you drill the steps, but you also have to listen to the music and feel your partner.
Yeah, that's true. It's amazing. This has been such a great interview. I loved it.
Thank you. I'm so happy we got to reconnect again after COVID and whatnot.
I know, so many years. So everyone can find your book over at, I'm going to give the link here. You can download the first chapter for free over at flourishthriveacademy.com/Flawesome. And I'll have that link in the show notes. Flawesome is spelled Flawsome, just in case you were wondering.
With an E.
Yeah.
With an E.
Oh, with an E. Okay, perfect. Okay.
But I think we have redirects just in case people misspell.
Okay. Flawesome, Flawesome. Okay.
Awesome is the word.
Okay. Flawesome, like awesome, but with a FL in the beginning. Cool. Yeah. And I'll have the links in the show notes and everything. And when Kristina's book hits the newsstands, please pick it up because it's going to be so good. I am excited to get my copy right away. Okay. Otherwise, where can everyone else find you?
Well, I'm everywhere as Kristina Mand with a K, Kristina with a K. It's an Estonian way. And, nowadays, I think everybody is present in every social media. Oh, and my website is kristinamand.com.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Kristina. Wasn't that an amazing episode? If you haven't done so yet, make sure that you head on over and grab the first chapter of Kristina's book. You can head on over to flourishthriveacademy.com/Flawesome, Flawesome, and grab that first chapter today. And make sure that you follow Kristina on social media and all the things. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure that you subscribe to our channel and hit that notification button so that you're notified when we release new content. All right, this is Tracy Matthews signing off. Until next time. Ciao for now.